everyone, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 1 of Mighty Moron with me, the United City FM. Welcome along. So it's been a summer of change at the club. We've brought in some new players, which I'm quite excited about, to be honest. We've got a new formation, slightly different new style of play, but you and I are still here. So let's get into the season and see how we get on. So as I say, there have been a lot of changes this summer, and a lot of them I'm really happy with. It's the first transfer window I've been through that out the other end of, I feel actually quite excited about what we've been able to do. So there has been lots of changes. First off though, I'll show you the fixtures that we've had in pre-season. There haven't been many of them, but you can see it hasn't been high scoring, but we've got a couple of wins just to build some confidence, and there's at least one name there that you don't recognise, so we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, that's the pre-season friendlies. 1 draw, 2 wins, only 1 goal in each of the games for us, but that's not too bad. I'll take that all the way through the season if we can get it, but let's hope that as we progress the floodgates open a little bit and we can get a few more than that as we move on. The squad has been quite late in assembling. We've had a couple of very late players come in terms of transfers. But one thing that I would say is that again in this series and at this level of football is that it's really hard to get players out. I've got like 4 or 5 that I would have loved to have got rid of in the summer through sales or loans or something, and none of them have had any interest shown in them whatsoever. So we've got a lot of deadwood again, but by the end of the coming season, one of the reasons that they're struggling to find suitors for them is that a lot of them, their contract ends at the end of this current season. So it's just really hard to get them out of the club. Anyway, so we've got a slightly bloated squad again, but that's not too bad. You can see that we sit within the wage budget. You can see that we've still got a bit of transfer budget left. We've been working mainly on loans, it must be said, and the overall balance is reasonable at this point in the season as well. So all in all, that's not too bad. So let's go and check out what we've done in terms of player recruitment in the summer. So here we are on the transfer history page, and immediately you can see in the outs column there was one, Jean Jarque has gone out. He was only in our reserve squad though mostly and didn't quite ever find a way to the first team, so he's left, which is fine by me. He left on a free, but we have sold one player, and unfortunately it's a player that I didn't personally want to sell. He was sold from under me by the club's board, and that's because they put in a good offer for him. So Facundo Gomez, one of my central defenders, has gone. Now, I mean, it's not totally the end of the world. He's 32 years old and his mental and physical attributes aren't the best, but he still performed really well for me. So I didn't want to sell him, but he was sold by the board. So out he went, and we got a bit of money, which was pretty good. But you can see in the incoming list, we've made, what's that, half a dozen additions to our first team squad. There are no youngsters in here in terms of for the lower squads. These are all for our main first team squad, and they're all on free transfers or loan deals. So we've worked really hard this summer to get some good players in on the free transfers specifically, and then found some really good loans. We also kept the 2 players that we were loaning last season as well. I think you're allowed quite a few loans, like maybe 7 or something in this division, something like that maybe. And I think we've got about 5. So we kept Calidio and Fernandez from last season, and these are the players that we've added in. Now immediately when Gomez went out, I had to go and find a suitable replacement for him in central defence. And the first one that I found is this guy, Santiago Echeverria. And he comes in at 31 again, so he's got some experience about him, although it doesn't show in his leadership. But I think he's a reasonable prospect, at least for 1 season. We'll see what happens at the end of the season. But I'm reasonably happy that we've replaced roughly like for like. And I think this guy, especially in his mentals, is much better than what Gomez was. So I'm pretty happy with that. So this is the first guy in, and he is in the club on a free transfer. The first loan that we found was Mateus Sul. And he's going to be one of our left side of midfield options. 18 years old. We've loaned him in from Juventus, which is a great place for trying to get some good loanees in. At 18, he's got a lot of potential about him, seemingly. He's got a lot of gaps, though, it must be said. A little bit of determination lacking in that sort of department. But overall, for the level of football we're at, and as a backup player on the left-hand side of midfield, I think this guy is reasonably good. And we've got him in on a season-long loan, so I'm happy about that. The next one in is Marcelo Ortiz. And he comes in as another central defensive option. What I decided was that we weren't quite strong enough in that department. The likes of Gomez has left the club. Dordoni, who played with Gomez last season, looking over his attributes and where the club is heading, I'm not sure long term he's a good enough prospect for where we want to head. So I wanted a couple of extra options in that department, and this is one of them. Marcelo Ortiz, at 27 years old, we've got him in to the club on a free, and I think that you can see in defensive terms he's got good attributes. His mentals are not brilliant, let's face it. The determination isn't fantastic, but his physicals are better than some that we've got in the club already, and that's, you know, the defensive side and the physical side are what brought him into the club. So he's just another solid defensive option. So that's Ortiz. The next one is this guy, Martin Piero, and he comes in as a first team player in the centre of our midfield. There's lots of little areas where we've managed to improve the first team squad, which is really good this season. Obviously, we've taken away an attacking midfield player to put him out, central midfield player, to put him out wide left, so we've changed that role. But we've bought a little bit a better quality, I think, in some of the free transfers and loans as well, moving forward. So this is another one of those. I think all round he's a pretty good player. Determination is really strong. The little area where I think he could improve potentially, Piero, is in the physical department, but hopefully others will sort that out for him, and he can just sit in central midfield as a box-to-box and get involved defensively and offensively and do a job for us. So he comes into the club in central midfield. He's on a loan transfer rather than being bought into the club. The next loan is Orozco. It's going to take me a while to get used to some of these names again, isn't it? Franco Orozco. And he is our first choice down on that left-hand midfield berth that we're now playing, the attacking midfield left berth. And this guy is a good prospect. 19 years old. We've bought him in from Lanús, and we've got him in for a season-long loan. Hopefully, his contract is up at the end of the season. Hopefully, we can nab him, especially if we were to go up. I think that would be a pretty good move, but that is a conversation for another day. For now, in the second tier of Argentinian football, I think this guy has got a lot about him, and I think he has just improved the quality in our squad an awful lot. So I expect really, really big things from Franco Orozco this season. So he's on a season-long loan, and the last person that we bought into the club is actually bought in on a free transfer, and it's this guy, Alejandro Cabrera, and he is another central midfield option. We've overhauled the central midfield. Good boy, I didn't think it had the quality anymore. Kranvita wasn't playing well last season and lost his place to Chalky. Chalky, I think, is going to be still a great prospect for us at 18 or whatever he is. Remember, he's the youngster that was named after one of my Patreons. And so he's still in and around the squad, but will possibly play a little bit more of a substitution role this season as we've increased the quality in central midfield. And this guy has really done that. As a central midfield player, as a creative influence, 14 of passing, 15 of marking, 14 tackling, positioning and teamwork are great, determination is excellent, concentration, bravery, aggression. He's going to be a great central midfield player for us because he can do a number of things, defend and create potentially. So he's going to be also playing in our central midfield this season. So those are the half dozen players that we brought into the club. You can see the couple that we've taken out of the club. We've got one other player to tell you about, and that is this guy, Vigu, Mateus Vigu, I'm going to go with, but if you think otherwise, you let me know. And this guy was one of the first players that I bought in, and he's going to come in January at the end of his contract, and maybe he's already been usurped by the loanees that we've got, so he may not actually last too long. but he's coming into the club in January because this is just the best I could find in the early stages of the transfer window. As I say, since then I think we found better wide men, but he's still coming, so we'll see what we can do with him in January onwards. And that's it really. That's the summer transfer business that we've done. And you can see, I think there, that we've changed a bit of our defence. We've changed a bit of our central midfield. We've added a left-sided winger into our style of play, which we haven't played before. Remember, we were slightly lopsided, played a right side, but also a central rather than a left side, because that's all we had in the club. So we've addressed that. That's taken away the attacking midfield role that we were playing last season. So now, just before we go and play our first game against Chacarita Juniors, in the first league match of the season, we're going to go into the tactics page and show you exactly what all of those changes mean to what we're going to be playing this season in terms of formation and style of play. And kind of this is it really. You can see that we've gone for a fairly traditional 4-3-3 with a holding player and two central midfield players, two wingers, one either side, and the striking option up top. And so we've got a little bit more balance about us, a little bit of a better structure maybe in terms of being able to work both sides of the pitch and also keep shape when we're in the defensive unit as well. So that's what we're going to play mostly this season. It could change as we progress, and I could add a second formation in here and take the defensive player away and put an attacking player in there, because we still have the likes of the Angel and Basidas, who were playing that role for us last season. I didn't particularly want to keep either of them. The Angel specifically was good, but he's aging a little bit and not quite up to the standard I want moving forward. So there's an issue there in terms of getting him out of the club. But for now, this is what we're going to be playing. The 4-3-3 in the slightly more defensive structure of the 4-3-3 rather than maybe the 4-2-3-1. And we have changed slightly in terms of what that means for looking at how we actually play. To start the season, we're going to be playing in a balanced mentality, because I don't want to go too gung-ho or too defensive at the start. And we'll see where the land lies as we go through the season as to whether we can begin to push forward a little bit more, or whether maybe we need to take a step back and soak up a little bit of pressure before moving forward. We'll figure that as we go. You can see, though, that in this particular setup, we've got a new central defensive partnership. Both Ortiz and Echeverria have come into that central defensive unit. We've got a new central midfield partnership, Cabrera and Piero. We've got Fernandez, who was on loan with us last season. Orozco comes into that left-hand side berth, and there's Galliano from last season. Now, Galliano's an interesting one. At 22 years old, he's still got a little bit of room for improvement. But you can see he's not a fantastic striker, but he performed well enough for us last season. But what I'm hoping that as the season progresses is that Colidio can finally do what I brought him into the club to do and put Galliano under pressure. You remember at the back end of last season, Colidio picked up an injury that kept him out for the last section. But I think he's got a bit more about him. At 21 years old, he's got more pace and natural fitness. His finishing is decent. His composure is all right. There's some good mental stats in there. Attributes, should I say, in there. So I think this is the guy that I really expect by the end of the season to be taking that number one striking berth. And again, his contract is up at the end of the season. Can we bring him in, especially if we were to move up? Would that be the right move? We'll have to wait and see for later in the summer. So what else have we done in terms of the style of play? Well, we've gone into a balanced mentality. In possession, we've got an attacking width now that deserves a slightly wider berth because we've got a player on both sides. So we're going to be playing the slightly more attacking width, with more attacking width. We've got a standard passing directness. So we're not going long, but we're not trying to play tiki-taka either. We're just playing as the game sees fit. We're keeping the high tempo for now, but I'm happy to drop that back and try and maintain a little bit more possession if necessary as the season goes on. I think with two wide men, we're going to be playing for a few set pieces. We're going to be trying to gain in and around the area, a few free kicks, for example, from the wide men running at the defence a little bit. I haven't put them on to run at the defence specifically, but I'm hoping they'll do that kind of naturally just because of the type of players they are. But we're still going to try and be a bit more disciplined and a bit more structured, especially in the defensive side of the game. So in transition, you can see we've wiped the board clean on this, and we'll work on this as the season progresses as to how we deal with some of the instructions here. But we've left it completely blank for now. We'll play the default kind of setting and see how that works for us as the season progresses. Similarly, in the out of possession setup for this particular season, we've also pretty much wiped the board clean as well. Pressing intensity is only on standard. I don't want to wear them out hunting for the ball necessarily because we don't have that attacking central midfield player, so we're not going to be able to cover that pressing all the way across the pitch when they've got the ball in their defensive units. So I didn't want to go too full on the pressing. In terms of the shape of our side and where we engage, our line of engagement is on higher, and so is our defensive line. Again, not ultra high, not sitting too deep. We'll see how that works. But one thing I have done is that when we soak up the pressure, the two wide men hopefully will come back and track back and help defensively, which means that we can go slightly narrower on the defensive width when the opposition have got the ball. So that's what we're going to start the season with, but none of that is always the case in my series. None of that is set in stone. If it doesn't work for any reason, we can always move it and shape it differently and find a way to reshape it. Now, the one area of this team that I wasn't able to improve again, that I did try and we just couldn't find the right deal, was the goalkeeping department. Unfortunately, I still think that's a slightly weak area. I did put a couple of bids in for a couple of goalkeepers, but they didn't quite work out. So we remain with Galvin as our number one and Bustillos as our number two, and they'll have to do for now, but longer term I am still on the hunt for a new goalkeeper. But that's basically going to do it. That's the new players that we brought in, the new tactic that we're going to be implementing in terms of our formation and our style of play. So now it's just about playing our first game against Chacarita Juniors in the first league match of the season, and to do it we've got a squad, a first 11 should I say, and wish me luck with the names on here. We've got Galvin in goal, Echeverria and Ortiz in central defence, with Brogy on the right, Ochoa on the left, Federico, Cabrera and Piero in central midfield, with Fernandez on the right, Orozco on the left and Galliano up top, and a bench of Corzo, Sanchez, Gayer, Chalky, Glaby, Saul and Colidio. So let's get into the first game of the season and see what happens. So everybody in the media suggests that we are huge underdogs for this particular match, so that's why I've gone, let's give these fans a good performance despite the odds being against us here, just to try and boost their morale a little bit. Didn't quite get a huge response, but obviously Chacarita Juniors have probably come down from the top division, I would imagine, from last season, and so they're going to be challenging opponents on the first game, especially away from home as we are. So we'll have to see how this new look Moron side cope with that kind of pressure in the rain on the first day of the season. A first chance for us though, off a throw-in down the right-hand side. Fernandez takes over, gets to the byline, crosses it to the far post, and Orozco on that far post gets a header, but it goes over the top of the bar, and we'll have to find a little bit more quality in that to sort of breach the goal of Chacarita. But so far, the pressure is coming from us in the first 9 minutes. Again, we get to build up an attack from losing out on the corner kick that came in, and they got it partially cleared. We regained possession. Orozco with it was a good attempt, wasn't it? Orozco with an initial shot that was blocked. It came to the edge of the area. Second shot came in, but again, it didn't quite breach the defences. And Chacarita can breathe a bit of a sigh of relief. But again, at 18 minutes, it's another throw-in for my Deportivo Moron side. And this time they lose out of possession, though, on our left fullback area. And Montoya gets to run all the way through, but chose not to, but sensibly dropped it back into midfield, got the ball back again, crossed the ball in, and after a little bit of good footwork, Velasquez puts us 1-0 down after 19 minutes. We were doing so well. That's the key ball. It just messed up our shape completely when Montoya got it back again. He had clear path to cross the ball in, and defensively we couldn't quite handle Velasquez at the post, and he puts us 1-0 down. But we have been doing okay. We've been putting the pressure on. We've had the chances. And again, we get a chance for Orozco to cross in down that left-hand side. And again, it's to the far post. And this time it's Fernandez, and he gets a header. But again, it's over the top of the bar. We are doing really well. Just on that final bit of quality, we are lacking so far. Ortiz will pick up the loose ball though from our corner kick that was partially cleared, and we almost lost it out in midfield, but Federico just about keeps the ball, and then we do lose out, but it looks like Cabrera is going to regain possession in central midfield, pass it into Brogy. Let's see if we can keep the ball here a little bit and just draw them out onto us, so to open up a little bit of space maybe. So Ortiz onto Ochoa down the left-hand side, onto Orozco. He's still going to get me a little bit of confusion occasionally with some of these names. But Brogy down the right side into Fernandez. All on the space is all there, and he couldn't quite deliver again. A good attempt, but again we lack the quality on the finish. Cross comes in from the corner kick, partially cleared, but Piero will pick up the loose ball. And eventually again we get it into that far post with Orozco. And again we can't quite finish. Look at these chances though. 8 shots on goal for us, 3 on target. Only 1 shot for them, which they scored from. We're doing well in our general play. We're just lacking that little bit of quality in front of goal. And again, here come Chacarita Juniors, and they keep possession in midfield, even though we're pushing and pushing and poking at them a little bit. Can we finally get a foot in? You can see our winger coming back, Fernandez, to help out in the defensive shape. That's what we like to see. We're going to have to defend as a unit and attack as a unit to be successful. And there's a bit of good fortune for Chacarita again. The cross comes in, and this time is a goalkeeping error that he only parries it out into that 6-yard box instead of catching it and claiming it. You can see the ball comes in from Campo here, from the byline. Very powerful. He can only whack at the ball with his right hand, the goalkeeper, and it falls directly for the striker of Chacarita, and they go 2-0 up after 36 minutes. And it looks like today is not quite going to be our day, even though I think we're doing reasonably well in the big picture of this game. We've obviously been sucker punched twice, and we find ourselves 2-0 down, just on the edge of ending the first half. But one last time, over the top to Orozco, gets the chance to cross in Fernandez, and this time the header comes in from Fernandez downwards instead of over the top, and he gets it past the goalkeeper into that far post area. And it just sneaks in, doesn't it? Just in that in that far post as we were looking at it. Orozco holds up the ball, eventually gets the cross in. A good firm header from Fernandez, beats the goalkeeper, and we get 1 goal back just on the edge of the first half ending. And there is the final whistle for the first half. So it doesn't look quite as bad as it did a little while ago with that 1 goal that we've managed to pull back. And I'm pretty happy with that first half. Look, I mean, they had 2 shots the entire game so far. At home, you would expect them to be dominant in the attempts, but they weren't. They had 2, but they scored 2, and that's the bit that's unfortunate for us, really. We had 10 attempts at goal, 4 of them on target, managed to get that 1 goal. So actually, I'm not too disappointed. But what we'll do is calmly say, unlucky boys, things just haven't gone quite right for us so far. Doesn't mean it can't in the second half though. So let's see how we get on, and we'll immediately go into the shouts and demand more from them, just to see if we can up the tempo a little bit and up the momentum. And we're going to go from the balanced into positive, because I feel like the game is still there for us to try and get something from. But it's gone very quiet. And we're just over the 70-minute mark, and it feels like there needs to be a few changes at this point. Now, we've got a few decisions to make here. I haven't got my right full-back replacement option on the bench, so it looks like Brogy's going to have to play all the way through, even though he's slightly low in his conditioning. But then we've got Fernandez right of midfield, and we've got Glabby on the bench. He's played brilliantly, but you can see that he is struggling for fitness. So I am going to have to take him off, I feel. Both wide men are going to come off, so that's Glabby coming on for Fernandez, and we're going to take Orozco off and put Sewell on and give him a debut on the left-hand side of our midfield. And it means I've got one more choice that I can make, and it's going to be Galliano. 6.5 rating for this particular match isn't quite good enough, and Colidio gets the first chance to show me that he should be starting in his place. And we'll see whether he can finally come good and score the goals that I think is in there for that striker. But again, it's Chacarita. Oh, it's so frustrating, isn't it? We've been really good, I think, today. But every time they've managed to get it towards our penalty box, they find a way to score a goal, and they've done it here. Now, that's bad play by Glabby, who's just come on. There's no challenge there. And again, with Brogy in the right fullback area, didn't quite put the challenge on that I was hoping to Velázquez. And he manages to poke the ball home into that top corner. And neither the defender or the goalkeeper could do anything about it. Corner comes in from Chacarita. And again, they make us pay. Oh, it's so unlucky, isn't it? Is that because I went more positive? I don't know whether that would have made a huge difference. It just feels like the quality that they've got, every time they breach us, they're going to actually make the chances pay that they've created. And it's one that we couldn't do. Even on that occasion, when it didn't quite count for them, I'm so confused. You'll have seen much better than I can. I was so caught up what was going on. Now, obviously, one of the four that I think they've scored, they didn't. Now, was it the last attempt or was it the attempt before? And I genuinely don't know. I got so carried away with what was going on, I couldn't tell you really what happened. All I know is that they made us pay for some errors that we made, and they showed a little bit of quality in and around the penalty box that we couldn't quite demonstrate ourselves. But there is a number of positives here, so let's go into the analysis page and see what we can find out about this particular match. So let's look for the positives in the game. First off, we had more shots than they did. We didn't quite have more shots on target in the end. They overtook us on that, but we still had a good number. Possession was good. We had 63% of the possession. The average ratings of the players was a little bit lower than them though, and that's where we lost it collectively. We didn't quite have a good enough game across the board to cope with what they had. And in that defensive unit, there was occasional moments where we couldn't quite cope with their quality once they'd got it in and around our penalty box, and that's where we seem to have lost it. In the analysis page, you can see that our heat map, that's the sort of heat map I like to see. It's got enough to show that we've worked all areas of the pitch. You can see that in terms of the focus of attacks, we worked down the left-hand side. Okay, we've now got that wide player playing on that left-hand side, so that's good. But I think the player that we were mostly playing at the beginning of the game, Carrasco, is that his name? I think it is, Carrasco. He comes in off of that wide berth as an inverted winger, I think. So he's going to be working more central, so that's why the heat map shows up there probably. But overall, I'm happy with the heat map. I'm happy with the areas of play, sort of. I'd have liked a little bit more central play for our central midfielders to get involved. So that might be something we work to put it in there to then spray it from that point. We'll have to work on that. But we had good amount of percentage play in midfield, which is fantastic to see. And overall, I'm actually not too disheartened by what I saw. So let's go into the team pages of the analysis setup, and we'll check out our shots that weren't on target today. And it's the off target and the saved that we've got to look at. So let's look at the off target first, and we will just look at our own. And so these are all the shots that we had inside the penalty box that didn't challenge the goalkeeper because they were off target, and that's something that we have to improve on. And you can see that mostly it was Orozco that was the culprit for it, our left winger cutting in off that left hand side as the inverted winger. Now I'm hoping that as he gets used to our way of play, he will cut in but then lay it off for others to have a go, because that's the inverted winger's type of role. So there's some work to do there in sort of getting everybody used to playing with each other. But it's not too bad. And then we had 3 that were saved, but none of them, as far as I can see, let's just check. No, none of them was our main striker, either Galliano or Colidio. So that's a thing that we have to work on again, is getting our chances for those guys rather than the teammates around them. So that's the first thing that we learn in terms of our shots for the game. In our passing, what were our intercepted passes like? A few more than I'd like. I'd like to get that down into sort of the 50 mark at the most if I can. You can see that in this sort of area, the goalkeeper did brilliantly to clear his lines in this chunk of the pitch, which is fantastic. But obviously going long out of that, just clearing the lines, meant that in this sort of area we were losing the ball a bit. But overall, there's some work to do here, but it's not terrible. And then we'll look at the out of play ones. Again, I've always said I don't mind these ones going out of play because they're clearing their lines. What I don't want is these ones going out of play. They should be putting the through balls in a better place for our attacking players to latch onto. So overall, I'm not too disheartened by that. That's not too bad at all. So we'll just check one more thing, and that is the crosses and the completed crosses this time for us, because we're now playing from both sets of wide men. That's not too bad. There's enough there to think that we've got some good crossing of the ball, and they were completed ones. They just couldn't find the quality on the shot or the header, etc. The intercepted ones, a few more on the right than on the left, so there's some stuff we have to work on there. But at least we're attempting to get them in, which is great. None that went out of play, which is good. So overall, I think that demonstrates that we were quite well in this particular game. I think we did ourselves proud, really, away from home against tough opposition in the first game of the season. But there is a little bit of quality that we just need to find in front of goal to convert a couple of those chances that we created just to put the pressure on the opposition. So before we leave the match day scenario, we're just going to go in there and say, I can't fault your effort. Nobody expected us to win, but you gave everything. I think that's a fair reflection of what happened, and it delighted them. So that's a good thing. So it's going to build morale as we move forward. So let's leave the match day scenario and just go and check in with the early stages of the season. We are in Group A in the second tier of Argentinian football, and each season Group A and B in this tier get randomly drawn. So you can see that there'll be some new teams in there to play, but some old favourites as well, like All Boys and the likes of Estudiante. Buenos Aires is back amongst our teams to play. We've got Belgrano in there. So there's some recognisable teams in there to play, but some new guys as well. So that's going to be interesting to see who we come up against as the season progresses. So one last thing to do before we end this particular episode, and that is go and see what we've got planned for next episode. So here we are on the schedule page. We've just played the Chacarita Juniors match. What we're going to do is play through to the end of September. And actually, we're going to come back against Nueva Chicago. We've got a bit of a rivalry going there with them over the last couple of seasons. So that's the game that we're going to play. So I've got 3 or 4 games in between now and then, just to see whether we can iron out some of the difficulties that we've got, see if we can get some better quality in front of goal, and come back for Nueva Chicago, hopefully all guns blazing, and see if we can get into this season properly and get some points on the board. So that's what we're coming back for next episode, but that's basically going to do it for this episode. Little bit of a disappointing result in terms of just not getting the points, but I think the performance was pretty good for a new setup, a new set of players, against difficult opponents away from home. So I'm not too disheartened. Let me know what you think in the comments below. But that's going to do it for today. Thank you very much for joining me. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't and join my United City community, the more the merrier, and it keeps you up to date with all the videos that I release as we go through this journey together with Mighty Moron. So click that like button on this particular episode if you could for me. That helps it get seen by lots of other people. I know that we didn't quite get the points today, but even so, I think there's some positivity in there. I'm quite excited about the season ahead. But until next time, take care of yourselves. I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.